आते हैं, this is about creating that foundation. And from my perspective, is basic hygiene. So that's where we are today. That the basic hygiene in terms of getting Pakistan to become a bankable brand again. That's where we are. अब इसको आगे कैसे लेकर जाना है? Yesterday, we were very honored that Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council was convened by the Prime Minister, and Ziad was there as well as member of that Advisory Council, and they expressed similar sentiments in terms of the turnaround on the macro side. But at the same time, I thought it was very interesting that they also cautioned us as a government to not go for a sugar rush. कि ये जो एकदम यूफोरिया है, उस यूफोरिया को कि आप put the foot on the pedal, and we have seen it in the last decades and in the last few yesteryears as well. And that in turn therefore gets us into boom and bust cycles. This is not what we ought to do or plan to do, because we cannot afford another boom and bust cycle. So if we have to go towards sustainable and inclusive growth, the focus has to be on structural reforms. And the structural reforms are already underway. I just want to again emphasize and re-emphasize, because बहुत एक feedback आती है कि आप structural reforms करेंगे तो DNA of the economy change होगी, वो DNA of economy change होगी तो फिर आप import led से export led आप लेके जाएंगे. The structural reforms are already underway around taxation, energy, SOEs, public finance. And before I come to the retail sector, I just want to expand a little bit on this. On the taxation side, there's a real transformation underway. Or कोई भी transformation है. In my previous assignment, I used to say is people, process, technology. So people changes have been made, and we will continue to make in the FBR. The process part, which is extremely important. कि उसको अगर if you automate a broken process, it will not be optimal. And then technology in terms of end-to-end digitalization, which is extremely important, and that's our focus at this point in time within the authority, the tax authority, ताकि उसमें transparency आए, उसमें leakage कम हो, which is an euphemism for corruption. And उसका एक पहला एक example है, because people are saying कि structural reforms करें, structural reforms. The faceless customs जो launch हुआ early January में, where about 80% of the imports come in for Pakistan. तो वहाँ दो तीन उसके फायदे हुए हैं, which is अभी already sort of 2 months into it, कि जो GD की clearance थी, वो on average 118-120 उसमें जो घंटे लगते थे, is now down to 18 to 19 hours. Why? Because in that sanitized environment that we have and the help of technology, जो सारी discussion hoti thi around speed money and facilitation money and all of that good stuff is gone, because that's where bulk of the time was being spent. So these are all small steps, but they all aggregate into where we are headed, inshallah, with respect to the reform in the tax authority, because it's very important. It's very important that we restore the trust and credibility in the tax authority, ताकि ये कोई ना कहे कि जी आप हमारे से इतने पैसे ले लें, इतने पैसे और ज़्यादा ले लें, लेकिन हमें इनके हवाले ना करें. In a country of 240 million people and the size and scale of our economy, we simply cannot afford this, that people don't want to deal with the tax authority of the country. So there's work cut out on the other side, but there's work cut out at our end, and that's why we are going through that transformation. और ये बहुत important है. The Prime Minister himself is sort of following up on that and taking the lead in terms of following through. I understand Minister of State भी यहाँ आएंगे towards the end, so I'm sure he will elaborate further on this as well. Then on the energy side, whatever is happening on the power and petroleum, that's very important, and that's all the changes already underway. Some tough measures are also being taken because ultimately we have to move towards competitive energy. Then the SOE reforms, that's a cabinet committee that I chair, और उसमें जो हमने प्रोसेस शुरू किया तो हर मिनिस्ट्री आके यही कही कि जो हमारा अटैच डिपार्टमेंट, there are 43 ministries, 400 attached departments, and I'm just talking about the federal government. So every ministry comes and says कि जो हमारा काम है वो सबसे ज़्यादा strategic और essential है, तो इसलिए आप हमें ना छेड़ें. तो वो अब ये है कि we are, as I said in the PTI administration, Dr. Ishrat had done a very, very good job in terms of institutional reform, and he had already sort of prepared the whole framework कि हमने जो right sizing करनी है federal government की वो हमने कैसे करनी है. So I'm very grateful to him. I keep on talking to him, but वो ये है कि आपको इसको one step at a time. So what we are doing is we are taking 5 ministries, we call them, the minister in charge, the principal accounting officer, the attached departments, we listen to them. We make our recommendations, we take them to the cabinet, and then the cabinet agrees or doesn't agree. The final recommendations or final decisions come to us, and then we take it into implementation. So we are now into wave 4, so about 20 ministries have been dealt, and inshallah by June end, we will be done with the entire federal government in that context. And some of that is obviously already moving into the privatization side. Privatization में हमें hiccups आई हैं. PIA is getting to be relaunched, but we are very determined to sort of take this whole forward because जैसे आप प्राइम मिनिस्टर से सुनते रहते हैं, आप सब प्राइवेट सेक्टर से हैं कि the private sector has to lead this country. Government should be there to provide policy framework, policy continuity, और उसमें मैं 1 मिनट में वापस आता हूँ. And the last thing is about public expenditure और वो right sizing की जो इस वक्त exercise है, this is already underway. And it's not only about getting rid of the vacant jobs, but also making these departments more efficient, etc. as well. तो इसी तरह pension reforms हमने की हैं, and all government colleagues in the civil bureaucracy who have joined us from July 1 of last year are now on defined contribution. So what we have done is we have stopped the bleeding. The stock is still there. But कहीं ना कहीं से तो हमें ये काम शुरू करना था. So that's where we stand at this point in time. Now coming to the subject at hand, the retail sector. I think Zian has already mentioned the figures, the very clear contribution to the GDP. 19% is a very big number. But जो इन्होंने जिक्र नहीं किया कि जो contribution to the exchequer है, वहाँ मसला है. 1% है. So वो इसलिए मसला है कि ये जो अभी बात हो रही है, and therefore I do think as a country our hand has been forced. People keep on asking me, why is it going to be different this time? It's going to be different because we cannot continue to go back to the same for more. The manufacturing industry, to a certain extent the services industry, and the salaried class. So उन पे जो disproportionate बोझ आया है, और वो सब लोग कहते हैं कि जब आप empathize करते हैं, मैं empathize इसलिए भी करता हूँ कि on a personal note 30 नंबर से पहले मैंने अपना भी टैक्स अदा किया. अब मैं कोई सैलरी ड्रॉ नहीं कर रहा, लेकिन I paid my tax as a salaried person from my previous employer, and therefore I know the proportion of the number which went up, and therefore the absolute numbers which the salaried class had to pay. So this is not sustainable. This is not sustainable. And the only way we are going to bring sustainability is if other segments, whether it's agriculture, whether it's retail, wholesale, whether it's real estate, they need to step up. और ये कोई overnight नहीं चीज होगी, but the direction of travel has to be in that on that trajectory. So इसलिए I am very grateful to the provincial governments and the chief ministers to at least have the agriculture tax cleared by the provincial assemblies. That's step one. And then of course we need to see how that trajectory goes up as we go forward. Now on the retail side, जैसे ज़्यादा आपने अभी बात की है कि apart from the contribution, it's you're all linked with trade, you're linked with employment, you're linked with customer engagement, and all of those are critical. और कल हमने जो Economic Advisory Council में भी सुना कि consumer sentiment जो है वो change हो रहा है, आपने भी अभी जिक्र किया, आपने उसका जिक्र किया, and we see it in the numbers. In various ways and forms, and I think it's good to know. But having said that, again, ये सिर्फ retail की बात नहीं है, ये almost every sector की बात है कि the formal versus the informal. Retail में वो बहुत stark है at this point in time, but you pick up any segment, it can be tobacco, it can be beverages, it's the same thing, where people in the formal sector are paying up and to a certain extent subsidizing those who are free riders. And again, that is not sustainable. तो इसलिए within the retail sector, जो आपकी ये council है, आपके तवस्सुत से और जो सब यहाँ बैठे हैं, I'm grateful for your contribution and the value that you are adding, both on the GDP side, but certainly, paying your dues back into on the taxation side. But the ones who are not there yet, we have been engaging with the retail sector with, first of all, a request कि ये national interest की तो हम बात करते हैं, लेकिन अब ये मुल्क इसका अब मुतहम्मिल नहीं हो सकता कि if people want to take a free ride and don't want to come into the net, we just can't afford it anymore. And therefore the whole documentation bit, मैं हमेशा बात करता हूँ war on cash, so 9.4 trillion cash in circulation. और again, there's no magic wand कि हमें एकदम इसको सारी parallel economy को documented economy में ले आएं. But again, we have to start moving in that direction, because if we don't start, we won't get there. तो इसलिए documentation is going to be very, very important as we go forward. और ज़्यादा जो अभी आपने बात की है digitalization की, मैं अभी देख रहा हूँ अगर मीर साहब यहाँ बैठे हैं, तो इनके होते हुए मेरे लिए डिजिटल की बात करना जो है वो मुश्किल होता है कि एक्सपर्ट्स यहाँ सारे बैठे हैं. But for me, I've always said that the digital journeys जो हैं, it's not an end in itself, it's a means to an end. And if you look at it from a client lens perspective, it's better, faster, cheaper. और आपकी जो industry है उसमें तो ये बिल्कुल apply होता है in a very big way. And hopefully as we go forward, the AI-led discussion is going to make it even the journey even faster. But उस सिलसिले में जो retail networks हैं, उसमें कि couple of days back we have issued another SRO, और उसमें हमने जो जिक्र किया है वो ये है कि जो manual invoices हैं uski, what is the limit in which we will tolerate that going forward, and in terms of uploading the manual invoices, what is the limit through which we'll tolerate that, because it's very simple that these are all areas where we will now have to come in a big way on the enforcement side. और ये सिर्फ ये retail की बात नहीं है, across sector. Beverages में अगर किसी का input जो है input to output is 6%, and there's one company which is claiming 18%, something is very wrong. अगर इतनी sugar consume करके तो हम आगे जा ही नहीं सकते. So there's something very wrong with that business model, if that business model is still there. तो इसलिए from my perspective, this is we value all of you who are there in the formal sector. I guess the Pakistan Retail Business Council essentially represents that segment. We value you in a very big way, and we will support you every possible way we can. But at the same time, the portion of the segment which is not contributing will have to step up. It's as simple as that. As we go forward, and it's across sectors, जैसे मैंने बात की है, formal versus informal.